What was your duck it done helping others moment? Had a friend years ago who was a bit self-centered and prone to stretching the truth. But he was a nice enough guy with a rough backstory and my friend group liked him. So I cut him a lot of slack. I like to host and I have friends staying over pretty regularly back then. I usually had 1 or 2 people spending the night on any given day. Anyhow, over the span of a couple of years this guy starts abusing that staying over for days or even weeks at a time, eating my food and drinking my liquor without contributing, that sort of thing. While constantly talking about his grand plans and daydreams as if they'd already happened. A little sad, but also pretty annoying after a while. Anyhow, I sit him down one day and let him know he's gotta head home, and that he's free to come over and hang out, but I'm not comfortable with him staying over for the time being. He leaves, I think it went remarkably well, and head out to work. And it turns out that he broke in while I was away at work and stole a bunch of my sister's things because his birthday was coming up and neither of us even thought to get him a gift. It takes a special person to rationalize how burglarizing someone is really their fault. Anyway, all slack and sympathy went out the window immediately. Called the cops and he's dead to me. When a good friend of mine that I worked under had cancer and wasn't able to pay some bills, I loaned her $200 just to help. I was only 18 at the time and felt bad because she had kids. It was right around the holidays, and I just wanted to help however I could and be a good person in life. She promised to pay me back when she could. Turns out she lied about having cancer, was stealing from the company I worked at, scammed my other co-workers, and would come in after calling out of work for her chemo to make fraudulent returns while I was overseeing the store by myself because of her calling out. Got that bitch fired and got promoted to her position after. Had a newish neighbor ask if he could borrow our lawnmower. Sure. Well, more or less every week he would come and get it out of our garage, use it to cut his grass, put it away without cleaning it or adding gas. In the fall we mentioned, it was a good time to get deals on a new mower. He never talked to us again. I'm a teacher. A parent of a former student contacted me in an emergency situation, couldn't afford to pay bills, and needed help. She was super helpful to me in my first year teaching, so I asked friends and family to help out and raised her about $2,000. Never again. She has contacted me every few weeks since then, always with a new reason why she needs more money. And when I offer food and clothing resources, she refuses it. It has placed me in such an awkward situation, and I regret ever trying to help her out in the first place. My mother and her new husband had moved into a new place and invited all the kids over for Christmas. In previous years we would buy a whole turkey dinner from somewhere so no one, me, had to cook. So imagine my surprise when my husband and I walk in. My mother walks out of the kitchen, hands me a spoon and says, "Good, you're finally here," and goes to sit down in the living room. After a quick and awkward conversation, it was determined that my job was to make sure everything currently in progress, or not even started, got to the table on time, while everyone else socialized. Basically, I was the help and should have realized that, so any feelings I had about that were my fault. I was a good cook, and my mother taught me everything, so I owed her. So I did. And not knowing the family dynamics, my new step siblings were very thankful and appreciative of all my efforts, which caused a meltdown from my mother about how we all should be thanking her. That was the first time I used a phrase that has come in handy for these situations. "I'm so sorry, it will never happen again." And it never did. They weren't happy when they finally realized what that meant. When I had a truck during college, everyone suddenly wanted me to help move them. Most were cool and gave me money or ordered pizza, unprompted by the way. One time, however, some dude I barely knew needed some help. I show up, and nothing is packed in his apartment. He had a giant fish tank and lived on the 3rd floor with no elevator. It was a fucking nightmare, and I never got a dime nor food or even some beers. I never talked to him after that. Shoulda left right then when you saw it like that. "Oh, looks like you haven't packed. I'll come back tomorrow when you need help moving." I used to frequently stay late at work for clients who showed up to the veterinary clinic last minute with a non-emergency problem and no appointment. Then 3 times in a row, 3 different people were told up front about the after-hours fee, agreed to pay it instead of scheduling an appointment for the next day, and all of them called back the next day fussing that they shouldn't have been charged extra for keeping us 30 to 60 minutes past our scheduled hours and that we were terrible, and trying to scam them by charging for our time, even though we told them up front and they had another option. It was exhausting and demoralizing. We did more than we had to for them after already working a full day because a desire to help is why we're all here in the first place. And they responded by saying our time was worth nothing and we suck. The entire staff said, fuck that. Now unless it's a literal life and death situation, if we can't fit someone in before closing and they didn't have an appointment, it's a firm no. I'm in this profession to help others and I still work late for real emergencies when they happen or if an appointment runs longer than expected. But I'm done sacrificing my personal time for entitled people who don't actually need it. We have helped out my sister-in-law a few times with money bills. Never a lot, $50 here, $100 there. Usually for some bill to avoid services being cut off. I'm usually the more heartfelt one in my marriage, but I ended up being the one to put my foot down. Went over to her apartment once. She had 2 big flat-screen TVs, new couch, new fridge, kids on PlayStation or whatever console she got them. It was all rent-a-center stuff, but that was the end for me. I didn't have any of those things myself, not to mention the incredibly bad financial decision those things were with the high interest rate. Part of me felt like I was taking food out of her kids' mouths, but realized that no, her poor decisions was doing that. I have neighbors across the road who we extended ourselves to help out because they had young kids and seemed to be struggling. Well, they were really starting to take advantage to the point where we couldn't walk out of our house without them literally yelling for us because they needed a phone, a ladder, money, someone to drive them somewhere, diapers, our Wi-Fi password, our wood, etc., etc. This started happening every day and multiple times a day. It became ridiculous and oppressive. They have since pulled that shit with everyone else on our road, wearing out one generous person after the other. Once you realize people are merely moochers and are content to remain so, that's when you're done. Me and my GF were leaving a McDonald's and pulling up to the stoplight. There's this homeless old man that we've seen around the area ever since we moved here, and my GF decides, since we've never given anything to this guy and he's always there, we should give him one of our McDoubles. He comes up to the car, says thank you, and walks back to his corner as the light turns green and just tosses it on the road right in front of where we're driving. Was donating baby toddler clothes to a mom in need through one of those Facebook donating pages. She didn't have a car. I did, so I drove 30 minutes away to deliver the stuff all for free. Got in a bad accident less than 5 blocks from her house. So I texted her to see if she could come get what she was able to because my car was totaled. She wouldn't walk the 4 blocks, then reported me to the group and got me kicked out for not following through. I ended up with a fractured sternum. Yeah, fuck that shit, never again. I was 16, only had €10 with me. Homeless lady begging for money. I tell her I won't give her money. Went to the local supermarket, bought 2 packs of milk, some bread, some cookies, a bottle of juice and some cooked chicken. Went and gave it to her, with all kindness. 1 hour later I passed by the same street, and everything is on the floor thrown away, not even eaten or open. 2 stories. 1. I offered a homeless guy a banana and he straight said, I don't eat that shit. 2. I offered a different homeless guy a banana and his eye lit up and he immediately blurted out, unable to contain himself, fuck yeah, I love bananas. I was 17 and still in school. The corridors were empty as my teacher sent me out to go do her a job. So I was just walking down the corridor when this girl carrying a bunch of books bumped into me and she dropped the books, like you see in a movie. So I apologized because I wasn't really paying attention and I bend down and get the books for her and hand them to her expecting at least a small thanks. But no. Instead this chick had to say, I have a boyfriend, so never ever purposely bump into me just so I can talk to you. You should have walked away. As she begins to turn away I grab her shoulder, which makes her turn around, and I knock the books out of her hand and say, now that was on purpose, and I walked away whilst she was stood there speechless. Some of you may think that was messed up, but I don't really regret a single bit of it as she got what she deserved. Had a new manager come into my former place of employment. Immediately this new manager starts firing people for bullshit reasons and hiring people from her old job to replace them. The walls in that place talked, and few noticed the janitor, So when I heard rumors of the next heads on the chopping block, one of which was mine, I decided to be nice and help out the other two. I considered them good friends, and it was the least I could do, right? I warn one, and he takes it seriously and begins looking for another job. So when the pink slip arrived, he landed on his feet running. The other promptly goes squealing to the manager in question, who uses that as an excuse to fire me, and then fires the person that had squealed. All 3 jobs were quickly filled by her old friends from her previous job. I've refused to lift a finger to help a coworker out since. I've had advanced warnings of firing and disciplinary hearings and various other juicy gossip. People for some reason think I hear with my eyes and assume that they can talk in front of me and I won't notice. I'm going blind, people, not deaf. But I've kept it all to myself. Last 2 times I've helped push someone out of mud snow in the winter, they've slammed the gas pedal down, coated me in mud, and as soon as they were free of the mud just kept driving without so much as a thank you. I've stopped helping people stuck in the mud snow. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.